Kiper Jr., talk to me about this, sir. The #1 spot, are you sold that it's Trevor Lawrence and not Justin Fields with how he's been playing?
1,000,000%, Molly. No, it's not even worth talking about. Let's not waste time on that.
No.
Trevor
Tell me
Lawrence,
why. Why
Trevor
are
Lawrence
you sure?
isn't one. The body of work. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is lock, stock, the #1 guy. Nobody's even close. So it's right now him. You know, Justin Fields is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL, we hope. Trevor Lawrence is going to be a spectacular quarterback in the NFL for a lot of reasons. But that decision, I think, has already been made. The Jaguars are fortunate to be #1 over the Jets. You take the guy that everybody wanted, that everybody was hoping, all events trying to get the #1 pick to get Trevor Lawrence. Works out that's the Jaguars' major need. Whether Urban Meyer's a coach, whoever becomes the coach of the Jaguars, with all those draft picks, 7 in the first 4 rounds, in addition to Trevor Lawrence at #1, it's Trevor Lawrence. Like I say, this is like a secretariat, and the rest of the horses in that race, the Triple Crown.
Mel, for so many folks out there who haven't watched these guys play, like you say, it's not worth talking about, but I'd really appreciate you illuminating why that is.
Sure.
Break down what each quarterback brings to the table, because you got folks with the Jets at #2, and they're like, okay, well, you know what? We don't get Trevor Lawrence. Hell, we can get Justin Fields. This dude could be special. Talk to us about the potential for these, just highlight for us the difference between these quarterbacks, since you said they're miles apart in your eyes.
All right, Trevor Lawrence, Stephen A., would be in the John Elway, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck. You lock them in, you don't debate it, okay? You lock them in, you don't debate it. Justin Fields going into this year, I thought would be right there as kind of 1 and 1A, but it was going to be Trevor, but it was going to be Justin Fields, a solid #2, but not that far away. The Indiana game, the Northwestern game, certainly hurt in the evaluation of Justin Fields. He didn't play well. He didn't look like the same quarterback. Now, I know all the missed time, and it's a COVID year. He obviously, you think about Trey Sermon, evolved late in the year as the main big-time running back, so a lot of things came together. He didn't have Chris Olave against Northwestern, but I think when you look at Justin Fields now, you say, is he going to be a New York Jet? I say no. Sam Darnold has had a higher grade coming out of USC than Justin Fields will have this year. That's what I go by when I make decisions like this. So I would say if I'm the New York Jets, stay with Sam Darnold, trade the second pick to Cincinnati if they want to get Penei Sewell, the tackle from Oregon, or somebody else, Atlanta, Detroit, New England want to move up to get Justin Fields, let him go up there and get that second pick, or you just sit there and take Penei Sewell. But I think Sam Darnold is the quarterback moving forward right now for the New York Jets.
Hey, Mel, could you go into that about Justin Fields a little bit more? Because the kind of work that you do evaluating and projecting, NFL kind of level is tough because the sample sizes are so small. So if you point to 2 games with Justin Fields, you're probably talking about a half a dozen decisions or moments in each game upon which you're basing your. What was it in those 2 games that you saw about Justin Fields that you said, wait a minute, this is not 1A, this is 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that?
It was the games in their entirety, Max. It was some inaccuracies, some a feel in the pocket for pressure, and that the intuitive quality you look for. Something was missing. And I can say, boy, this isn't the Justin Fields that I thought Max was going to be right there with Trevor Lawrence. Keep in mind, they were 1 and 1A coming out of high school in Georgia. They were right there. It was kind of debate who was the best quarterback coming out of high school. Was it Justin Fields? Was it Trevor? But right now, because of the body of work, and you say, okay, did you have any hiccups? Trevor Lawrence didn't have many of those. And keep in mind, in that game against Ohio State, Clemson didn't get it done in the trenches. The offensive line, where they had to replace 4 starters from last year, didn't get it done. And the defensive line didn't get it done. So that was an in-the-trenches win for Ohio State. That won't happen against Alabama on Monday night. But to answer your question, Justin Fields right now, I still think Max and Stephen A. and Molly belongs in the top 5 on the big board. Some I talked to this week said, you can't put him in the first round right now. You can't have him up there. That was based on those 2 games. I said last week he needed, more than any prospect I've probably evaluated in 40 years, a big game against Ohio State, against Clemson. And for Ohio State, Justin Fields came through for the Buckeyes. He needed to. He did. The team won. Great. But for Justin Fields now, I think he's in the discussion to be a top 5 pick, where without that game, we would have been talking, is he a mid-first? Is he a late-first? Is he a first-rounder? Had he played like he did against Northwestern and Indiana in that game, that's the discussion we would have had. But the great game he had and the guts he showed and the accuracy and everything we saw last year he showed in that game against Clemson, that's why he's back in the top 5 of round 1.
I'm intrigued by the wide receivers as well, because we talk about Devontae Smith and the likelihood of him winning the Heisman Trophy, how to be highway robbery if he doesn't win the Heisman this particular season. But when we look at the wide receiver spot, I'm looking at this kid, Jamar Chase, out of LSU, and they're right there. If I'm looking on your board, I think you've got them ranked like 4th and 5th, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, I apologize for that. But I want to know, how far apart is Devontae Smith from everybody else at the wideout spot in college football in your estimation?
See, that's a great question because it goes to the opt-out. I mean, Jamar Chase opted out. He had a phenomenal season with Joe Burrow, and I don't hold it against him. That's a business decision a lot of these kids made. You saw what happened with LSU this year. So I think you look at Chase, had he played in a situation like he had last year, he would have probably edged out Devontae Smith. But the fact that he didn't, and Devontae went out and lit it up again, and he didn't have Ruggs and Judy sharing the spotlight, and then Waddle got hurt October 24th on the kick return, and it was all Devontae Smith. The defenses had to gear up to stop, and they couldn't. That's why Devontae right now is slightly ahead of Chase. And I think both, it's like Julio Jones, A.J. Green. It's one of those deals, guys, where they're both going to go really high and are both going to be expected to be great.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.